Welcome back to Gold Standard. This is the NBL's look at the Australian Boomers and their campaign from now through to the Olympics. And last night, in the wee hours of Australian time, 2 a.m. to be precise, which explains the bags under the eyes, Australia had an important part of their build-up to the campaign when they took on the might of Team USA in Abu Dhabi, 98-92, the final score. As you can imagine, a lot to talk about from the game. I'm Jack Heverin, joined by Andrew Bogut and Brad Newley to break it all down. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you. It's been an early start for us all.
It has.
Morning, Jack. Yeah, I'm on 3 coffees already, so let's fire away.
Why don't we start with, before we get into the specifics, why don't we start with the result? As I say, 98-92. There'll be a lot of people listening to this who may not have seen the game and are relying on us to kind of fill them in. Is that a true indication of the game, that final score and the 6-point margin, or was there a little bit more between the two teams?
Yeah, I think it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. Australia really wasn't in the game for most of this. It was a 15 to 20 point margin throughout. And they made a little run late in the game and made it respectable. But I don't think that's important. I think this result isn't as important as getting through rotations, trying different things. And as I tweeted yesterday, is making sure we have no injuries. So I don't think the result was that key. But if you looked at, if you're one of those people that didn't have a chance to watch it, you look at a stat sheet, you're like, oh man, they did all right. It was in 6 points. It wasn't really close throughout that game. US did a great job, especially early on, just shooting the ball so well from 3. I mean, if they shoot the ball that way throughout the tournament, they're going to be hard to beat.
It was an unusual game from the US. Typically, in years gone by, you would kind of live with back in the paint, as the Boomers kind of tried to do. I think that'll probably be a tactic moving forward, particularly against the Greeks dealing with Giannis, but that kind of led to a lot of open corner threes, and they knocked them down. So that could be something to look at going forward. But I stayed up and watched and checked it out. We started with Paddy, Josh, Dyson, Nick, and Jock. And I thought Jock and Giddy were really good in their minutes. I think a lot of the balls, maybe pretty obvious, is going to go through those two guys. And if that's the connection, that has to be really good for our tournament. I think we should do it right. But a lot of things to look at. But once again, these kind of pre-tournament results are all about kind of getting a run and a feel for the subs, I guess.
What would Gorge have taken away from that starting 5 that you just mentioned, Newells? Giddy, Mills, Daniels, Kay and Landau were first out on the floor.
Yeah, I think there's something to look at with Dante. I enjoyed his impact. Maybe do we start with him and maybe bring Pat off the bench as more of a team shooter, which has been spoken about on our podcast and in the media a little bit as well. So that could be something worth looking at. I think Jock and Nick did a pretty good job, and I also like the play of Dyson. So that Paddy and Dante would be maybe the only one change I would make. But we've still got a couple of games to make some adjustments.
What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, I'm a similar mind. I think I'd love to see Paddy come off the bench and just play that gutter role. They split minutes pretty quickly between Paddy and Josh. I think 6.5 minute mark to start the game. Paddy came out, then came back in late in the first once Josh came out. So they're trying to really split those minutes because they both need the ball, right? They both need the ball in their hands to be effective. Josh was very effective. Paddy wasn't great tonight. Paddy started very similarly the last couple of tournaments in the lead-ups and friendlies, and there is concerns obviously looking at the way he's playing, but this has been kind of a story for him in lead-up games to tournaments, so that he has a great tournament, but they're going to need more from him. But I like that. Either Exum or Green for me, I think for Paddy would be the way I would go. I think it puts a bit more shooting out there. Dante shoots at a reasonable clip from 3, so does Josh Green. What I liked was the defensive effort for the most part, even though we gave up 98 points. I think we have an anomaly just because of the way the US shot the ball, as I've mentioned. But we're up and in. Our rotations were good. There was good communication, and we were pretty good, pretty solid for the most part defensively. I think towards the end of the game, there was some intentional fouling to try to get them on the free throw line and maybe make it a game. So they probably theoretically could have been in the 80s. So I think it was a pretty good defensive effort. But the offensive end for us is going to be, that's going to be the questionable one.
Shooting's going to be a talking point from this game, no doubt about that, from outside. Australia 4 from 17 from deep. Team USA 12 from 29. And it was, as I say, a major factor in the game. Every time that Team USA needed a bucket, they kicked it out and there was someone available to knock down a 3, whereas Australia didn't have that same luxury. from that standpoint, is that going to be one of our most glaring issues offensively?
I think the direct comparison, like we probably did a better job of packing the paint, so it led to them shooting higher percentage threes. Like a corner three is a higher percentage shot than something from the top. I didn't think we got that many of those kind of looks. Ours are more kind of rush threes as opposed to their more feet set. So that's probably why that percentage is much higher. But as we go forward, other teams are going to be able to do that to us. So yeah, we're gonna need to hit some ourselves. So how we generate those kind of open threes. I thought we moved the ball pretty well, but if we can just get a few more clean looks, I think our percentage will definitely lift up because we've got the guys who can knock them down.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, we shot 11 less threes than the US. The US got up way more. They obviously try to get them up en masse. That's not going to be our game, but we do need to shoot. We need to be in the 40s somewhere. So tonight, 7 for 18, 8 for 18 would have been respectable. And all of a sudden we're in the game, in a 6-point game, right? But we did a fantastic job tonight of I really liked our ball movement. I think we're really moving the ball side to side. We've gone away from that isolation ball that we saw the last 2 tournaments. Look, it worked with Paddy in Tokyo, the isolation ball. Didn't work in the World Cup. And I think we've gone away from that and everyone's touching it and feeling it. I love that. But we are going to need some guys to be, 2 to 3 3-point makes a night just to keep the defense respectable so we can keep attacking the paint. You saw late in that game, the paint attacks kind of dried up a little bit and then you got to make some shots. And that's the tough part of international ball. The US I don't think they were elite defensively tonight. I think they were okay. But some of these Euro teams, especially the Greeks and whatnot, that rely heavily on scouts, really smart coaches, really smart players, they're going to make us shoot 35 threes, or they're going to entice us into shooting 35 threes. Can we make 15 of them to stay in a game? If we shoot, anywhere near what we shot tonight, even in the low 30s, it's just not going to be enough to get it done. And that's a huge concern. It has been since camp. It has been since everyone's been talking about the prep for the Boomers, got to knock down 3-point shots.
One positive, I guess, from an Australian point of view, offensively was the pick and roll game. Josh and Jock working together. It was a thing of beauty at times last night. And then even Will Magnay of the Gold Coast Rollers comes into the game, and Will was able to find himself on the end of some really nice looks underneath as well. Does that get a big tick?
Yeah, definitely. I think like the ball movement, side to side, high assist game for Giddy with 7. I mean, Jock had 6 assists. I think Jock was clearly our best player on the night. Not just statistically, but you look at what he does, just keeping offensive rebounds alive. All these rebounds were at the offensive end.
Communication too.
Yeah, the most
you can hear that very clearly. Yeah,
was guarding Embiid at the defensive end, so he did a great job of keeping a body on Embiid. But I just like the way we're really balanced. I think Nick K did a pretty good job, even though his stats weren't great. Dyson Daniels, so really good offensively. But I think the question that I've had from the start of this is, we played at a faster pace than the US. If you watch that game, we were up and down offensively faster than the US. We were really, and that was key when Mules and I were at the camp with the Boomers watching Gorge, was we want to run, right? And we saw that. What are we going to do against Greece and against these kind of teams in the half court? I think in Canada it's going to be good. It's going to be an up and down battle, but those Euro teams really grind you down, especially late in quarters. Where are we going to get buckets from? That's my question mark still today.
And we've got
they'll fail you halfway and say take that out of bounds and reset. Let me see a set. That's what they'll do. Yeah. So
we've got Serbia tomorrow, which we'll talk about shortly as well, who kind of fall into that bracket too. But try and help us understand, Newells. Go on with your point there about the European style, because it's not going to look anything like it looked today, will it?
Yeah, typically the way the Europeans like to play, there's a lot less turnovers. That means there's a lot less pace. So they want to really grind it out in the half court and take the very best shot, not the first shot available. You'll see a lot of guys turn things down and they make that extra pass. And then defensively, what they want to do is they won't pick you up full court, but they'll meet you right on halfway, and there's no space. If it looks like there's an advantage for the other team, they'll foul you and say take that out of bounds. That's typically how they've always played. And the Greeks are very, very well known for their defense. That's one of their best streaks, and they've got a monster down there, Giannis, who can really clean up down the back, and Papa Giannis as well. They've got 2 really big 7-footers. And the Spanish too, they pride themselves in that kind of defense as well. So tomorrow night will be a good challenge against the European kind of team. I thought our defense, there might have been signs what we're going to do with the bigs. So they were sending a double to Embiid. I think that'll be important as we come up against someone like a Giannis, those kind of guys, and how we rotate. And my only concern is giving up some corner threes on our defense. But typically the Euros will grind it out and make it a real half-court battle.
Halftime in the game last night, score was 53-37. It felt like it was almost teetering on the verge of being a bit of a blowout. It kind of crawled towards halftime that way, but the ship was steadied a little bit in the third quarter. Australia went on a 10-0 run, and the interesting one there for both of you is that was with a bit of a different lineup as well. The starters came in for a few minutes and then came to the bench, and Gorge went to a couple of different looks and a 10-0 run happened. So do we take away that we've got some different options available here with lineups?
I think so. It's just a matter of unlocking what works. It's there's a lot of length, a lot of size coming off the bench. A lot of guys that are doing different things, different skill sets. The key for Gorge and the coaching staff is to try and put those puzzle pieces together of what works. There's going to be certain players that don't work well with other players, but we saw, I think McVeigh was in that lineup that you're talking about where they made their little run. It did get out to 20-something at one point and they reeled it back, but there's going to be a lot of different lineups you can go to. But I think Gorge is probably his biggest concern is when we are playing and flowing well, who's going to knock down long-range shots for us? And that's been the question mark. And I think McVeigh comes into that. He had 9 points tonight, didn't make a three, but was aggressive. Just they're a different look with him on the floor because I think he brings us something a little bit different to Nick Kay. Nick Kay's more of a be in the right place at the right time, space the floor, make the right decision, but it's more of a slower. Where McVeigh gets in and just the way he plays, he's just had 3 Red Bulls. He just runs around and causes chaos because he plays so hard. You can see that he's just trying to really make something happen, which can be good and bad. But in this lineup, they need a guy like that. And I think he looked to him probably playing a bit more minutes, especially the fact that he came on, before Joe Ingles and took those minutes at the 3-4 at times. So I think you got to look to him to probably be that guy that can knock some threes down for him.
So that's a nice segue into those who didn't see a lot of burn in this game. We didn't see a lot of Duop Reath. Came into the game in the first quarter for a couple of minutes, and that was pretty much it. As you mentioned, Bogues, we didn't see Joe Ingles or Matthew Dellavedova in the first half. We saw Joe for a few minutes in the third quarter, Delly for a few minutes in the fourth quarter. Do we think that's probably a bit of a pattern?
I mean, to me, they played a bit of a steadying role, and that potentially going forward. We've talked about the different kind of like the defensive lineups, the offensive lineups, and trying to get that balance right. You've probably got someone like a Delly, who's a great defender, but down the other end, he's more of an organizer. So where he fits in, I think he's probably better playing with someone like a Paddy. That could be something that could change going forward. But I think their role is going to be try to steady the ship, and in a way, they kind of did that in that third quarter just to be ready and be good for the group. That's my short take, but it's the first game. Things can change tonight on things early days, but they'll have a role there for sure.
Yeah, I think we're starting to solidify who the 8 or 9 is. I was surprised that Duop, that McVeigh was off the bench as a backup big before Duop. Essentially, I know there's some concerns around Duop defensively. Can he guard? And I think with the lineups they want a bit more mobility. Duop shoots the ball really well from 3. He's probably an okay rebounder for his size. I wouldn't say he's elite. Whereas I think Magnay's a very good rebounder, can block shots and just play solidly. But then you look at this is my point coming into the tournament as to why Delly's in the lineup. He played 4 minutes, right? And he had 2 rebounds, 2 assists and a steal, So he's a guy that, whereas Joe played the same amount, 3 minutes and zeros across the line. And that's my point with the 2 different guys is Delly's kind of a guy that you can put in for a couple of minutes at a time. I think Joe's a little bit harder to put in for spot minutes because he's an older guy, plays at a slower pace, probably takes him a trip up and down to get him the flow and get warm, whereas Delly just flies off the bench like a bat out of hell, right? And he's up and in within the first second he's on the court. So that's why he's on this team in that 11th, 12th man role, because you can count on him to come in and create some problems. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, Gorge and the coaching staff, they still have a lot to unlock. The US game's kind of a weird one. Probably it'll be similar to our Canada game, kind of flow-wise, but as Newell said, the rest of the games in this tournament are going to be against Euros. So I think this Serbia game, for me, I'm looking at that much more closely than I'd really cared about the US game. US generally don't really care about the lead-up games too much. It's kind of let's just flow into it. Let's not get hurt. It's too cool for school kind of stuff. Whereas I think the Euro lead-up games, to me, are much more important.
We'll take a break in just a moment, talk about Serbia on the other side of that. But some news as we head to the break that is hot off the press that we need to talk about. It ties in with what we're doing here with this show, and it ties in with a man that we just spoke about a few minutes ago. Olgun Julic reporting just moments ago, as we're recording, that Jack McVeigh has signed a 2-way deal with the Houston Rockets. What an incredible 3 months this guy has had. He's had one of the greatest moments in NBL history. He's won an NBL title and a grand final MVP with the Jack Jumpers. And now he's going to get the opportunity to chase his dream on a 2-way deal in the NBA. It's a remarkable story.
It's great.
It would have been handy if he did it last year, and he would be
great.
Nah, very happy for him.
I mean, for the Sydney Kings, let's hope McVeigh gets one as well. Get them both out of there.
Yeah, give everyone a chance. It's a great story. Great for the NBL, great for Tassie. I saw a tweet about what Jack's done even in the last for not just this year, but his kind of trajectory. I remember me and Bogut were playing for Sydney. He hardly got on the court, and he just stayed to his process. Look what he's gone and done. He's moved on to an NBA chance. Whether he sticks, I hope he does. I don't know what the whole 2-way thing looks like. I'm not up to scratch on those kind of things. I was just a stash guy, so I don't really know how.
Stash guy?
Well, stash guy, mate. You never know what can happen, but really, really happy for him. And I guess we'll wait to see what happens with McVeigh as well if they keep doing well.
And just amazing what the selection in the Boomers has done for him, and for some of these guys that maybe you don't think are going to play a lot, this and that, but this is a guy that I think his first couple of seasons didn't really play much. Like, he spoke about that at length. He had to kind of find himself and reinvent himself about how hard he worked and all that kind of stuff. But, the national team, I think, has put him on the map a little bit. I'm sure Houston probably were following his journey in that NBL season as well, had an eye on him. They're like, man, he's made the national team over the likes of Matisse and a few other guys, and they probably said, let's give him a crack for a 2-way. So great for the league, great for Tasmania, great for Jack.
He made a good business decision going from the 3 to the 4. I think that was a very smart business decision for him. So, good luck to him.
Unbelievable, Jack. On behalf of all of us, congratulations. You've made this all happen yourself, so well done. Quick break from us here on the Gold Standard. Don't forget that the Blitz is not too far away, the ultimate way to start the NBL 25 season.
Today is a historic day for the sport of basketball and for the state of Western Australia.
That's ridiculous. Westcott at his very, very best.
We are unleashing a new, powerful movement in basketball where the whole sport comes together under Hoops Fest, the first ever time this has been held.
Great to be with you on the Gold Standard. We've just broken down what happened between Australia and Team USA last night at Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi. Now we turn our attention to another early morning, 2 a.m, as Australia take on Serbia. Bogues, Newells, you've both said that this game is much more relevant in terms of preparation for what's coming up at the Olympics.
No doubt. Yeah, I think Serbia's going to grind you out. They're going to play half-court battle. They play the high-low game at times. They've got, obviously, the MVP in Jokic from previous NBA seasons. So they're going to be tough, and it's just much more of a similar style. Probably 80% of the teams you're going to play in the Olympics, probably bar Canada and maybe in the US. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we react to having a grind out possessions. I think we're going to see, we're probably going to have stints where we can get out and run. They'll call a quick timeout. Their coach will get into them and abuse them and say, WTF, what are we doing? They'll come back out and they'll reinvent themselves. And then we're going to have to, I'm looking forward to see how do we score? How do we get good looks with 11, 10, 9 seconds on the shot clock? Can we get good shots and not just kind of, just draw bodies in the paint and throw something up? So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And defensively, how can we go with, the Europeans? They love to accentuate contact, and you could call it flopping. They play the referees very well, which is a part of the game. We've been very physical, and we usually come out of a training camp and play even a team like the USA, and you're all ramped up and playing super physical. And I've heard the sessions have been even more physical as they've gone to Abu Dhabi. sometimes the Boomers have an issue of being in the bonus within the first 6 or 7 minutes of a game. So also looking forward to see how they adjust to that.
Any differences, Newells, in the way that they would potentially start, or some lineup changes from Gorge?
Oh, maybe like we talked about earlier, like the Serbian lineup is quite big. That's where you might see the change with Mills, potentially with Dante and Green. Dante's had experience playing against a lot of those guys when he played over in Partizan in the EuroLeague. I'm just looking at their lineup. They are like Misic, Bogdanovic, Jovic, and of course, Nikola as well. So they're a very strong side. A lot of experience and also some good youth. So I expect maybe that would be the only change, to add a bit of more size. You never know. Maybe look at maybe starting the two bigs for a bit to give us a bit more help with Nikola. Why am I forgetting his name? Nikola Jokic, the MVP of the NBA. But I'm looking forward to that matchup. And for sure, we'll have to see something a little bit different.
That is all coming up tomorrow. As I mentioned, 2 a.m. Of course, you can keep your eyes on things at nbl.com.au. The NBL social media channels posting right throughout the game as well. And we will be back same time tomorrow morning with more coffee in our system to break down what happens between Australia and Serbia. To both of you, have a great day, and we'll do it all again tomorrow.
Have a good day.
Thanks for being with us. We'll catch you tomorrow on The Gold Standard.